The sound of my wife moaning through our bedroom wall wasn't unusual anymore. What was unusual was that I was standing in our kitchen, and she thought I was at work. My hands trembled as I pressed my ear against the door, hearing her whispered words of passion, directed at someone who definitely wasn't me. 3 months ago, I would have confronted her immediately. 3 months ago, I still believed our 15-year marriage meant something. But after catching glimpses of secret text messages, mysterious late-night calls, and her sudden interest in working overtime, I'd become a detective in my own home. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical wound. Sarah wasn't just cheating on me. She was doing it in our bed, in our home, while I worked double shifts to pay for the life she claimed to love. Every family photo on our mantle now felt like a lie. Every "I love you" she'd whispered felt poisoned. I'd spent weeks gathering evidence, hoping I was wrong. But today, coming home early from my construction job due to a storm, I found her car in the driveway alongside a silver BMW I didn't recognize. The same BMW I'd seen parked outside her office building last Tuesday when she claimed to be in meetings. My heart pounded as I heard footsteps upstairs. Male voice, deep laughter, the sound of our shower running. They were so comfortable, so careless that they didn't even bother to check if I was home. Standing in my own kitchen, feeling like an intruder in my own life, I realized something had fundamentally shifted inside me. The hurt was transforming into something else entirely, something that demanded action. I wasn't going to be the victim anymore. The betrayal wasn't just sexual, it was calculated. As I quietly searched through Sarah's purse, left carelessly on our kitchen counter, I found receipts that painted a picture of deliberate deception. Expensive lingerie I'd never seen her wear, restaurant bills from places she claimed never to visit, hotel charges on days she said she was visiting her sister. But the most devastating discovery was a handwritten note tucked behind her credit cards. "Can't wait for David to finally leave for his business trip next week. We'll have the whole house to ourselves. Love you, Marcus. David." My own name felt foreign in this context. She was planning around my schedule, using my absence as an opportunity. The business trip she'd encouraged me to take, claiming she needed space to think about us, was actually her setting up a romantic getaway in our own home. My hands shook as I photographed everything. The evidence felt surreal, like I was documenting someone else's life falling apart. But this was my reality. My wife of 15 years was systematically dismantling our marriage while I worked to support us. The shower upstairs stopped running. Panic shot through me as I quickly returned everything to her purse. I had maybe 5 minutes before they came downstairs. My mind raced through options. Confront them now, leave and pretend I never saw anything, or something else entirely. Walking to our bedroom, I could hear them getting dressed, their conversation casual and intimate in a way that made my stomach turn. They talked about weekend plans, about how David would never suspect, about how much they enjoyed having the house to themselves. That's when I saw it on Sarah's nightstand, a small bottle of personal lubricant, sitting brazenly next to our wedding photo. An idea began forming. The hardware store felt like a battlefield as I stood in the adhesive aisle, my heart hammering against my ribs. Super glue, industrial strength. The kind we used on construction sites when we needed something to hold permanently. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was about to make their intimate moment as permanent as they'd made my humiliation. "You okay, buddy?" asked Jim, the store clerk I'd known for years. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just a tough day," I managed, my voice barely steady. The weight of what I was planning felt enormous. This wasn't just revenge. It was justice for every lie, every betrayal, every moment they'd stolen from my life while I remained oblivious. Back home, I waited. Sarah's car was gone, along with the silver BMW. They'd left together, probably for lunch, probably laughing about the fool husband who had no idea. But I knew they'd be back. The note had mentioned this afternoon, and Sarah never deviated from her plans. In our bathroom, I stared at the small bottle that had witnessed my wife's infidelity. My hands trembled as I carefully emptied its contents and refilled it with clear, fast-acting adhesive. The consistency was similar enough that they wouldn't notice immediately. By the time they realized something was wrong, it would be too late. The moral weight of my actions pressed down on me. Was I becoming someone I didn't recognize? But then I thought about 15 years of marriage, of trust, of building a life together that she was casually destroying. I thought about the hotel receipts, The secret messages. The way she kissed me goodbye each morning while planning to betray me each afternoon. They'd made their choice. Now they'd live with the consequences. 2 hours later, I sat in my truck across the street, watching our house like a private investigator surveilling a crime scene. The silver BMW returned first, followed by Sarah's car. They parked separately. Even in their affair, they maintained the pretense of discretion. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Working late again tonight, don't wait up. Love you." The casual cruelty of that message, sent while her lover waited in our driveway, nearly broke my resolve. But it also strengthened it. She wasn't just cheating, she was gaslighting me, making me question my own perceptions while she lived a double life. I watched them enter our house together, Sarah checking the street nervously before closing the door. They thought they were safe. They thought they were clever. They had no idea that their victim had become their architect of justice. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. I imagined them upstairs in our bedroom, desecrating the space where we'd once planned our future together. The space where we'd talked about having children, about growing old together, about the dreams that now felt like elaborate lies. My construction radio crackled with afternoon traffic reports, normal life continuing around me while my world imploded and rebuilt itself simultaneously. Other people were driving home from work, picking up groceries, living honest lives. Meanwhile, I sat outside my own home, waiting for the consequences of betrayal to unfold. The waiting was torture, but it was also necessary. Justice required patience, and I'd learned patience through 15 years of marriage to a woman who was systematically destroying everything we'd built. Soon, very soon, their comfortable deception would become their uncomfortable reality. The first scream pierced the afternoon quiet at exactly 3:47 p.m. I know because I was staring at my watch, counting the minutes since they'd gone upstairs. The sound was muffled by our house's thick walls, but unmistakably panicked. My heart hammered as I realized there was no going back now. What I'd set in motion was irreversible, and the magnitude of that hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about catching them anymore. This was about fundamentally altering their lives, just as they'd altered mine. A second scream followed, this one deeper, masculine. Marcus, the man who'd been sleeping with my wife in my bed, was now experiencing the consequences of that choice in the most intimate way possible. Part of me felt sick. Part of me felt vindicated. I started my truck and drove around the block, needing distance from the immediate aftermath while staying close enough to monitor the situation. This wasn't about causing permanent harm. The adhesive would eventually dissolve with medical intervention. But the humiliation, the exposure, the shattering of their secret world, that would last forever. My phone rang. Sarah's number. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her frantic message. "David, something's wrong. We need help. Please come home, please." Her voice broke off into sobs. The woman who'd been lying to me for months was now begging for my help. The irony was almost too perfect. She needed me now, needed the husband she'd been systematically betraying, needed the man whose trust she'd been destroying one secret meeting at a time. But I wasn't ready to be her savior. Not yet. First, they needed to understand what betrayal actually cost. 20 minutes later, I pulled into our driveway as if returning from work normally. The BMW was still there, which meant Marcus hadn't managed to leave. Perfect. I wanted him to face the consequences of his choices, not slink away into anonymity like the coward he'd been while pursuing a married woman. I found them in our bedroom, exactly as I'd imagined, but the reality was more shocking than my worst expectations. They were stuck together in the most compromising position possible, panic and humiliation written across both their faces. Sarah was crying, Marcus was swearing, and both were desperately trying to separate without success. "David!" Sarah sobbed when she saw me. "Help us! Please, something's wrong with—" She stopped mid-sentence, seeing the expression on my face, the look of a man who knew exactly what was wrong and why. "Hello, Marcus," I said calmly, addressing the man I'd never officially met. "I've heard so much about you." The recognition dawned in Sarah's eyes first, the understanding that this wasn't an accident, wasn't a manufacturing defect, wasn't a cruel twist of fate. This was justice, served cold and precisely. "You knew," she whispered. "I've known for months," I replied, my voice steadier than I'd expected. "Every lie, every secret meeting, every time you kissed me goodbye before spending the afternoon with him. I know about the hotels, the restaurants, the weekend you claimed to visit your sister but spent at his apartment instead. Marcus tried to speak, but I cut him off. Save it. You both made your choices. Now you get to live with them. The power dynamic had shifted completely. They were vulnerable, exposed, dependent on my mercy, just like I'd been for months. We need to call for help, Sarah pleaded, her earlier arrogance replaced by desperate vulnerability. David, please, whatever you're feeling, we can work through this, but right now we need medical assistance. I sat down in the chair where I used to read before bed, back when our marriage felt real. You're right. We do need to call for help. But first, I think we need to have a conversation we should have had months ago. The industrial adhesive was strong, but not dangerous. I'd researched it carefully. Uncomfortable and embarrassing, but not life-threatening. They had time for truth. How long? I asked Sarah directly. How long have you been lying to my face every single day? She couldn't meet my eyes. David, this isn't the time. This is exactly the time, I interrupted. You're not in control anymore. You don't get to decide when we talk about your betrayal. You don't get to manage this situation like you've been managing our marriage, with lies and manipulation. Marcus finally spoke up. Look, man, I'm sorry, okay? I never meant for it to go this far. You never meant to get caught, I corrected. There's a difference. You meant every hotel room, every afternoon in my bed, every lie you helped her tell. You just never meant to face consequences. The truth was pouring out of me like water through a broken dam. Months of suppressed anger, hurt, and betrayal finally had an outlet. They were going to hear every word I'd wanted to say, every confrontation I'd imagined, every moment of pain they'd caused. I worked double shifts to pay for the life you claimed to love, I told Sarah. While you were planning romantic getaways in our own home. I found the note, I continued, pulling out my phone to show them the photograph. The one where you planned around my business trip. My absence was your opportunity. My trust was your weapon. Sarah's face crumpled. David, I never wanted to hurt you, but you did hurt me. Every single day for months. Every kiss goodbye was a lie. Every I love you was manipulation. Every time you encouraged me to work late or take that business trip, you were clearing the schedule for your affair. The room fell silent except for their labored breathing and muffled attempts to separate. The absurdity of the situation, having this long overdue conversation while they were literally stuck together, wasn't lost on any of us. You want to know what hurt the most? I asked, my voice breaking slightly. It wasn't the sex. It wasn't even the lies. It was how easy it was for you. How comfortable you became with betraying someone who loved you unconditionally. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. We should really call someone now. This has gone on long enough. Has it? I asked. Because my humiliation went on for months. My marriage died slowly while you two played house in my home. So forgive me if I don't feel rushed to end your discomfort. But even as I spoke, I was reaching for my phone. The point had been made. They understood now what it felt like to be powerless. To need help from someone they'd wronged, to face consequences they couldn't control or manipulate. Justice didn't require cruelty, it just required truth. I'm calling 911, I announced. But when this is over, when you're separated and cleaned up and back to your normal lives, remember this moment. Remember what it felt like to need mercy from someone you betrayed. The emergency dispatcher was remarkably professional considering the bizarre nature of my call. Sir? Can you repeat the situation? 2 people are stuck together due to an adhesive mishap, I said carefully. They need medical assistance to separate safely. What I didn't mention was that the mishap was entirely intentional, orchestrated by a husband who'd discovered his wife's affair and decided that poetic justice was more satisfying than a screaming confrontation. The paramedics arrived within 15 minutes, followed by a fire truck. Apparently, this type of situation required specialized equipment. I met them at the door, playing the role of concerned husband discovering a terrible accident. They're upstairs, I explained to the lead paramedic. My wife called me at work, hysterical. I came home to find them like this. The paramedic nodded sympathetically. These things happen more often than you'd think. Industrial adhesives can be tricky. As the emergency team worked upstairs, I sat in our living room, surrounded by 15 years of shared memories that now felt like evidence of an elaborate lie. Wedding photos, vacation pictures, anniversary gifts, all of it tainted by the knowledge of Sarah's betrayal. But something unexpected was happening inside me. The anger was still there, The hurt was still raw, but underneath it all was something that felt almost like relief. The pretense was over. The careful maintenance of a dying marriage was finished. The truth, however ugly, was finally in the open. My phone buzzed with a text from my brother. "How's the marriage counseling going?" I almost laughed. Marriage counseling? As if our problems could be solved with better communication and scheduled date nights. As if the issue was misunderstanding rather than deliberate deception. Upstairs, I could hear the paramedics working, their voices calm and professional as they dealt with a situation that was undoubtedly a first for them too. The separation took nearly 2 hours. I watched from the doorway as the fire department used specialized solvents and careful techniques to free Sarah and Marcus from their adhesive predicament. The humiliation on their faces was complete, not just from being caught, but from the absurd circumstances that had exposed their affair. "The adhesive will continue to dissolve over the next few hours," the lead paramedic explained to them. "You might experience some skin irritation, but nothing permanent. We recommend follow-up with your personal physicians." Marcus couldn't look at me as he got dressed. Sarah kept trying to catch my eye, probably planning some explanation that would minimize her betrayal or shift blame. But I was done listening to her lies. "Marcus," I said as he prepared to leave, "I want you to understand something. This wasn't about hurting you. This was about consequences. For months, you've been part of destroying my marriage while facing no repercussions. Today, you faced repercussions." He nodded quickly, clearly wanting to escape as fast as possible. "I'm sorry, man, really." "No, you're not," I replied calmly. "You're embarrassed, you're humiliated, but you're not sorry. If you were sorry, you would have ended it months ago." After Marcus left, Sarah and I sat in our living room for the first time in months, without lies between us. The truth was ugly and painful, but it was real. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now we get divorced," I said simply. "Now we divide up 15 years of shared life and go our separate ways. Now you get to explain to your family and friends why our marriage ended." "David, I know I made mistakes." "Stop," I interrupted. "Don't minimize this. Don't call it mistakes. You made choices. Deliberate, calculated choices to betray our marriage while making me feel crazy for suspecting the truth." 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new apartment, smaller but honest, watching the sunset through windows that have never witnessed betrayal. The divorce was finalized last week. Sarah kept the house. She could afford it now that she was openly with Marcus, and I kept my dignity. The story of what happened that afternoon spread through our social circle like wildfire. Some people thought I went too far. Others thought I was a genius. But most understood that sometimes, when traditional confrontation fails, creative justice fills the void. I learned something important about myself that day. I'm not a victim. I'm not someone who accepts betrayal quietly or enables deception through inaction. When pushed to my breaking point, I don't break. I innovate. The construction company promoted me to supervisor last month. Apparently, my attention to detail and problem-solving skills had been noticed. I'm dating again, carefully, honestly, with clear boundaries and open communication. I've learned to trust my instincts and value my own worth. Sarah tried to contact me a few weeks ago, claiming she wanted closure, but I already had closure. It happened the moment she and Marcus realized that actions have consequences, that betrayal has a price, and that even the most carefully constructed lies eventually meet reality. I don't recommend my methods to everyone, but I don't regret them either. Sometimes when words fail and traditional confrontation seems inadequate, the universe provides an opportunity for poetic justice. Sometimes the person who's been made to feel powerless discovers they have more power than they ever imagined. And sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply refusing to be a victim and choosing to write your own ending to someone else's betrayal. The glue was temporary. The lesson was permanent. And I'm finally free.